Welcome to another best wildcard and limitless team video, both of them rolled into one ahead of Matchday 11. This will also be helpful for those of you that want an idea of what the best free transfers are. So this video is for everyone, and let's get straight into this. We're going to start off with the best wildcard team. Have you played your chips already? Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you haven't, when are you planning on using them? I personally think the wildcard is best deployed probably right now or in Matchday 13 for the final. As for the Limitless, if you still have it, I'd probably just use it straight away really. Maybe if you have both chips available, wildcard Matchday 11 and then Limitless Matchday 12, but pretty much it's not an ideal scenario. There's not a huge difference between the ideal wildcard team and the Limitless team as it was probably in the earlier stages of the competition, and that also has to do with the increased budget we got in the knockout stages, as well as all the premiums such as in the forward position that have been eliminated. It's unheard of to go so big in the goalkeeper position and spend over 12 million, but I think it's worth it in this occasion. In UCL Fantasy, having squad depth is so crucial. Unless, we're talking about the final, that's where you just need a starting 11 and those on your bench don't really matter in most cases. But here we've got Edison and Alisson, and be sure not to spend over 12 million on two keepers playing on the same day. So for example, if you have Edison and Courtois, you're not really going to benefit from that. So if anything, you should either downgrade that second goalkeeper, and I'd probably downgrade Courtois in that instance, or go to Alisson. I think that's the best call. And I think these are the two teams that will reach the final, but you never know. Real Madrid have the best pedigree in the Champions League, so you can't rule them out. But with Liverpool, you would expect them to reach the final. So either way, even if one of them gets knocked out, you would suspect the other will make it through to the Champions League final in Paris. I think these are the two best goalkeepers. They play in the two best defenses left in the competition. Real Madrid and Villarreal, despite how good they've been in the European competition this season, I'm not too sure about their defense. So I think this is the best way to go about it. Edison actually got 7 points, which is a rarity for him, but he tends to get 6 points if he gets that clean sheet. And Alisson, the same thing really, but he makes more saves in general. So for me, these are the two best goalkeepers. There is the possibility to go really cheap with your second goalkeeper, and I don't think that's a problem, especially if it enables you to have an even better starting 11 and bench overall for your outfield players. With João Cancelo suspended, I think it's a great opportunity to go without him for at least one match day, then bring him back ahead of Matchday 12, even with your normal teams. I'm considering something like that myself. Check out my team selection video to see what I'm talking about. But I would also be very cautious and also very mindful of the teams that are at home in the first leg. So in this case, it's City and Liverpool, and therefore you would back those teams to win this game and to have the best chances of a clean sheet. So I would rather go for free City defensive coverage, as we do with Edison, Laporte and Stones, rather than go for 2 Real Madrid and 2 Manchester City. You could do that, or even go for more Real Madrid defenders, but I trust City and Liverpool more defensively, as I discussed with the goalkeepers. I would go for John Stones and Laporte. I think they offer great value. Stones, I'm not sure if he's going to be nailed until the end of the competition if City do reach the final, but he's a very good purchase to stand in place of João Cancelo, and therefore I would go for something like this. And I think City and Liverpool both have the best chance of a clean sheet, especially in the first leg of the semi-final. Trent and Robertson speak for themselves. One other thing you could do, especially if you don't go for Alisson or maybe one of the other Liverpool players we talk about later on, what you could do instead is go for Konate and only go for 2 City defensive coverage. That might be the play there. Let me know if that's what you're considering, but would you go for Konate, Trent and Robertson, or triple Liverpool defensive coverage? I don't think that's a problem, to be honest. That's what I'm doing right here, but I definitely wouldn't be quadrupling probably on Liverpool defence, despite the fact that in the first leg at least, they probably have the best chance of any team to keep that clean sheet. I think the biggest difference between the wildcard and limitless teams will be in the midfield. Now, I've gone for Luka Modric again, and he's going to be a constant feature in all of these videos. A lot of people always say, well, why would you go for him? But as he showed in Matchday 10, he has that assist. He's got those ball recoveries. He is one of Real Madrid's best players, probably in their history as well. He can just drag them across the line into those semi-finals and finals, and he constantly gets 4 points or above, which I discussed in previous videos as well. That's why I got him into my own team, and I'm very happy that I did so over the likes of Foden and even Mason Mount, who is now eliminated. Mohamed Salah showed his class in Game Week 33 against Manchester United with 19 points. He could easily turn it on like that, and against Villarreal, I would back him to be arguably the best captaincy shout, at least in the first leg of the semi-finals. I think he has a great chance of a haul. The same goes for Sadio Mane, to be fair, or someone else from that Liverpool attack. But Salah for me is still one of the best players in this game. He hasn't done it recently in the Champions League, but I think he will turn it on again and get those returns. As for Danjuma, he is that one Villarreal player that I would highly recommend. There is Albiol in defence, which you could consider, and up front there's Gerard Moreno, for example, Rulli in goal. But I think Danjuma is the best of the lot. He offers great value, and if Villarreal score, it most likely will be down to the Dutch international. So I would go for Danjuma there, and then De Bruyne. If there's any City midfielder you want to go for, it is De Bruyne. Then possibly Mahrez, who might offer you better value for money, and maybe you would consider going for the Algerian instead. But I would go for De Bruyne. Now that Lewandowski's out, we can take more money out of that forward position and put it into the midfield. And there, I would put it to good use and get Kevin De Bruyne, who, to be honest, I'm also looking to get into my own team as well. And then keep Fabinho as your fifth midfielder. There is another alternative to possibly downgrade one of your strikers to a pure bench fodder option, which I discussed in my team selection, and then upgrade Fabinho to Sadio Mane, and that would be fantastic. Then you have the two best captaincy options, arguably, on the Wednesday. So that's something you could consider yourself, and you can let me know what you prefer. But I think squad depth is very important, and it maximizes your chances of getting points. So I would go for a midfield five like this. Which midfielder would you go for? Around 5-6 million? For me, it's Fabinho. He gets so many ball recoveries, it's insane. And also, good chance of a clean sheet point, and he just gets so many minutes, apart from obviously Matchday 10, where Liverpool decided to pretty much rotate their entire team. But that's the midfield. Now let's move on to the forward line, and then we can discuss the captains before moving on to the best Limitless team. The forward line is pretty simple. I've gone for two Real Madrid attackers in Vinicius Jr. and Karim Benzema and Luis Diaz. I don't think you necessarily need Vinicius Jr., especially when they're playing against City, who are one of the best defensive teams in the world. And you could go for that cheap striker that I talked about and then upgrade Fabinho to Mane. But you do sacrifice your squad depth a little bit there. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I think that is a viable alternative. Luis Diaz or Jota, though, I would have one of them. We don't have that many forwards to choose from now. We used to have Mbappe, Haaland, Ronaldo, Messi, and of course we can't forget Robert Lewandowski. But now it's only Benzema, in my opinion, that is the reliable striker. He has to be in your team, in my opinion. It's a bit like Harry Kane in FPL almost, at certain stages of the season where you just look at him and you're like, well, he's the only good forward. You might as well get him in if possible, and it's good for your structure. I would definitely go for Karim Benzema. He's your only real hope there. I'm not trying to quote Star Wars, but I would go for a front three like this. Diaz or Jota would be a bit of a conundrum because you never know. Jota could get the minutes ahead of Diaz, and we won't know until the deadline has passed, and then there's nothing you can do about it, and you can't make substitutions or transfers in order to get Jota or Diaz depending on who starts. So that will be forever an issue. Vinicius Jr. though is nailed, and the alternative to all of this is Gerard Moreno, as I talked about before with Villarreal. He's been fairly consistent across the Champions League campaign, but if you were to get any Villarreal player, for me it's Danjuma. He's also cheaper, and I would rather go for a structure and a team like this with double Real Madrid attack, and you have a piece of every single team this way. Not too much in Villarreal, but I thoroughly expect Liverpool to go through to the final, and I'm not really backing Villarreal to get many points for their assets as well as many goals, but you never know. Champions League and football is a funny game. Let me know what you think of this team. We're going to move on to the best Limitless team, but before we do, let's talk about the captaincy. On the Tuesday, I would go for either De Bruyne or Karim Benzema. It depends on which team you favour more in that tie. Personally, I would favour City more in the first leg. Therefore, I would go for Kevin De Bruyne. But I'm quite 50-50 on that one. I think it's very close. Benzema's consistency has been unrivaled this season. But on the Wednesday, I think it's more simple. I would go for Mohamed Salah. Obviously, you check the lineups, you see who starts, and then you can finalise your decisions. But I would go for Salah as the captain on the Wednesday. And in terms of your bench, be sure that those players playing on the Wednesday are on your bench. Don't have any Tuesday players on your bench. That's pretty much all you have to do. Then you can make the substitutions during the substitution window, and you can also change the captaincy if your Tuesday captain does blank. So that's all the key information there. Let's move on to the best Limitless team, and let me know once again what you think. I'd be very curious to see your thoughts and who your captains are. On the Limitless, it would be identical really to the best wildcard team, and that's what I mean, where the differences between both chips aren't as big as it was earlier in the competition. But Edison and Alisson, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Rulli and Courtois aren't bad though, and if you look at the points scored throughout the whole season, they're actually higher than both Brazilians. So Courtois, I would say, has the highest ceiling of any goalkeeper. He can get those penalty saves, he can make multiple saves during a match, and it has been crucial for Real Madrid winning football matches. But I think Rulli is someone I'd kind of exclude, especially in the first leg of the semi-finals because he's facing Liverpool at Anfield. And to be fair, I didn't expect him to get a clean sheet at the Allianz. He didn't, but he did keep one at home to Bayern Munich, which is still quite a rarity. So you can never underestimate the Argentine, but I personally would go for Ederson and Alisson. There's not much to comment on with the defence either because I've already said everything that needs to be said. All of the defenders are pretty much the exact same. You could go for Konate, Raul Albiol instead, maybe David Alaba. There's a few alternatives to all of these names that I'm mentioning, but I personally would just go for this back five because on the Limitless especially, I would go for a few Liverpool attackers. In this case, we're going to go for 3, and in that case, I just don't think it's worth wasting another Liverpool spot on Konate. To be fair, you could maybe go for him instead of one of the fullbacks, but I personally would still go for the attacking potential of Robertson and Trent, and I think I'd still prefer that, despite Konate scoring in 3 games consecutively. Finally, some changes, and to be honest, the rest of the team is pretty much the exact same, and that's what I mean about the Limitless not really being too different to the wildcard. This is how we're going to go over budget in this situation, but Riyad Mahrez and Mane are 2 of the best captaincy options on their respective days. For me, Mane is probably, across the whole week, the best captaincy option alongside Salah. It's just the Egyptian, I don't know, I just think he has the penalties. He's been the better player throughout the whole season, but in recent matches, Mane has been in such great form, and therefore he could be an amazing purchase for you. Not many UCL fantasy points, so people will look at him and say, well, actually, I can just get someone who's got more points than him, like Bernardo Silva, and they could be making a really big mistake. You never know, of course, but I think Mane against Villarreal can do some serious damage. So that is going to be what separates you from those that are wildcarding or from those that are just making free transfers and can only get one of De Bruyne or Sadio Mane. I can get both, but I would need to get a really cheap striker and also sacrifice squad depth, get rid of Joao Cancelo and keep Thiago Silva, who's an eliminated player, in order to get both of them. So as you can see, that is the key benefit and advantage to you playing the Limitless, and hopefully you're aware of it. Riyad Mahrez, though, of course, he's still a great option. You're covering the 2 best City midfielders in this case, and if you don't back Real Madrid to really win this game or score too many goals and you don't want to captain Benzema on the Tuesday, well, now you've got De Bruyne and Mahrez to choose from in the first day on the Tuesday to really capitalise on your captaincy. I would still go for this front 3. If Gabriel Jesus starts for Manchester City, I would consider him. I think a few years ago against the likes of Varane, Gabriel Jesus had a great game and he can definitely turn it on and be a really good UCL fantasy asset from time to time. So maybe you can consider him. Gerard Moreno, if you think Villarreal are going to score a goal or 2 at Anfield. There's a few choices, but not too many, if we're being quite frank. So I would still go for the same front 3 as I would in my normal team or on a wild card. So pretty much the midfield, getting Mahrez and Mane in is the key difference. And if Joao Cancelo wasn't suspended, of course he'd be in this team over the likes of John Stones. But I really back City and Liverpool to win their first game, especially in the case of Liverpool. Real Madrid have a really good chance of reaching the final despite facing arguably the best team in the world in Manchester City. So that should be a really interesting tie. Let me know what you think is going to happen in the Champions League, and also which players are you bringing in and which players have we not considered, because there's so many to choose from, especially in the earlier stages of this competition. So if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, to get all the latest updates for UCL Fantasy and FPL. You can also join us on Discord. There's a link in the description below. There's a UCL Fantasy League. All of that is there and covered. And you can also become a channel or a Patreon. So check that out. It really helps out the channel to grow. Thank you very much to everyone who's already done so. All the best of luck for Matchday 11. Enjoy the football as always. And I'll see you next time.